When Sarah knocked on Jake's door that Tuesday evening, he could tell something was wrong just by looking at her face. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her usual bright smile was nowhere to be found. Behind her stood 8-year-old Lucy and 5-year-old Ben, each clutching a stuffed animal and looking confused. "Hey Jake," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know this is sudden, but I really need your help." Jake had always been the reliable one in the family. At 32, he lived alone in his modest 2-bedroom apartment, worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm, and maintained a predictable routine that he genuinely enjoyed. His sister calling him for favors wasn't unusual, but something about her demeanor tonight felt different. "Of course," he replied, stepping aside to let them in. "What's going on?" Sarah avoided his eyes as she set down 2 small suitcases he hadn't noticed before. "I just need you to watch Lucy and Ben for a few days, maybe a week at most. There's something I have to take care of." The children had already made themselves comfortable on his couch, Ben immediately reaching for the TV remote while Lucy sat quietly, observing the conversation with the unsettling awareness that some kids develop too early. "Sarah, what kind of something?" Jake pressed, noting how his sister kept glancing toward the door as if she might bolt at any moment. "It's complicated," she said, pulling out her phone and scrolling through what looked like a lengthy text message. "Look, I've written down everything you need to know. Their schedules, what they like to eat, Lucy's after-school activities. Ben still has those nightmares sometimes, but if you read him that book about the brave little mouse, he usually settles down." Jake took the folded papers she handed him, scanning the detailed notes written in her familiar handwriting. Everything seemed normal enough. Soccer practice on Thursdays, piano lessons on Saturdays, bedtime at 8:30. But the fact that she'd prepared all this in advance suggested this wasn't as spontaneous as she was making it seem. "When exactly will you be back?" he asked. Sarah was already putting on her jacket. "I'll call you tomorrow, okay? And Jake?" She finally looked directly at him, and he saw something in her expression that made his stomach tighten. "If anyone asks where I am, just say you don't know. Please." Before he could respond, she was kneeling down, giving Lucy and Ben quick hugs and promising she'd see them soon. Then she was gone, leaving Jake standing in his doorway, staring at the empty hallway and wondering what he'd just agreed to. That first night, he ordered pizza and let the kids stay up past their bedtime watching cartoons. Lucy helped Ben brush his teeth while Jake tried calling Sarah's phone, which went straight to voicemail. He told himself she was probably driving and would call back in the morning. But morning came, and Sarah didn't call. Jake woke up to the sound of Ben crying in the guest bedroom. It was barely 6 in the morning, and he stumbled through his apartment, still half asleep, to find the 5-year-old sitting up in bed with tears streaming down his face. "I want Mommy," Ben sobbed, and Jake felt a pang of guilt mixed with growing concern. "She'll be back soon, buddy," Jake said, though the words felt hollow. He sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed Ben's back until the crying subsided. "How about we make pancakes for breakfast?" Lucy appeared in the doorway, already dressed for school with her backpack ready. At 8, she had inherited Sarah's practical nature and seemed to be handling the situation better than her younger brother. "Uncle Jake, you need to sign my permission slip for the field trip," she said matter-of-factly, producing a crumpled paper from her backpack. "And Ben needs his lunch money for today." The next few days fell into an unexpected rhythm. Jake learned to set 3 alarms to ensure he got the kids up and ready for school on time. He discovered that Lucy was particular about her sandwich being cut diagonally, and that Ben would only eat cereal if it was in his special blue bowl. Small details that Sarah had somehow forgotten to mention in her hastily written notes. By Friday, when Sarah still hadn't called, Jake began reaching out to other family members. Their parents lived in Florida and hadn't heard from her in weeks. Their cousin Amanda, who lived across town, seemed genuinely surprised when Jake explained the situation. "That's weird," Amanda said over the phone. "Sarah seemed fine when I saw her at the grocery store last month. A little stressed maybe, but nothing out of the ordinary." Jake tried calling Sarah's workplace, only to learn that she'd taken an indefinite leave of absence 2 weeks earlier. The receptionist couldn't provide more details, citing company policy, but her tone suggested there was more to the story. That weekend, while the kids were playing in the small park near his apartment, Jake noticed a man in a dark sedan parked across the street. The man seemed to be watching them, and when Jake made eye contact, the car quickly drove away. It could have been nothing, but combined with Sarah's strange behavior, it left him feeling uneasy. Lucy seemed to sense his growing anxiety. On Sunday evening, as he was helping her with homework, she looked up from her math worksheet and asked, "Uncle Jake, is Mommy in trouble?" The question caught him off guard. "Why would you ask that, sweetheart?" Lucy shrugged, but her expression was far too serious for an 8-year-old. "She's been acting weird for a while. She kept checking her phone and looking out the windows. And last week, she made us pack our clothes like we were going on a trip, but then she unpacked everything." Jake felt his chest tighten. Sarah had been planning this for longer than he'd realized, which meant whatever she was running from was serious enough that she'd felt the need to prepare an escape route for her children. That night, after putting the kids to bed, Jake sat at his kitchen table with Sarah's emergency contacts list spread before him. He'd called everyone he could think of, but no one had heard from her. Her phone continued going straight to voicemail, and her social media accounts hadn't been updated in over a week. 2 weeks had now passed since Sarah had knocked on his door, and Jake was beginning to face the possibility that his sister's few days might stretch much longer than anyone had anticipated. By the 4th week, Jake had transformed his spare room into a proper bedroom for the children. He'd bought bunk beds, hung up Lucy's drawings on the walls, and even found a nightlight shaped like a rocket ship that helped Ben sleep through the night. What had started as a temporary arrangement was beginning to feel permanent, though Jake tried not to think about what that might mean. The kids had settled into their new routine, with the resilience that children somehow managed to find. Lucy had made friends with a girl in her class whose mother often walked them home together, and Ben had stopped asking for Sarah every morning, though Jake sometimes caught him staring out the window as if waiting for her car to pull up. It was during the 5th week that Jake's doorbell rang at 7 in the evening. His heart jumped, thinking it might finally be Sarah. But instead he found 2 police officers standing in the hallway. "Mr. Coleman, we'd like to ask you a few questions about your sister, Sarah Mitchell." Jake invited them in, his mind racing. The officers were polite but thorough, asking when he'd last seen Sarah, whether she'd seemed distressed, and if he had any idea where she might have gone. Jake answered honestly, though he kept Sarah's cryptic warning about not telling anyone where she was to himself. "Has she contacted you at all since she left?" Officer Rodriguez asked, notepad in hand. "No," Jake said. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. The officers exchanged a glance. "Mr. Coleman, we need you to know that your sister was involved in a situation at her workplace. There are some financial discrepancies that need to be cleared up. We're not saying she's done anything wrong, but we do need to speak with her." After they left, Jake sat on his couch, finally understanding why Sarah had looked so frightened that night. She'd gotten herself into some kind of trouble at work, probably something involving money, and had panicked. The thought of his sister potentially being guilty of embezzlement was hard to accept, but it explained her behavior and her desperate need to disappear. 3 days later, Jake's phone rang at 6 in the morning. Sarah's number appeared on the screen. "Jake?" Her voice was barely a whisper, and she sounded exhausted. "Sarah, where the hell are you? The kids are they okay?" She interrupted. "They're fine, but Sarah, the police came by. They're looking for you. What's going on?" There was a long pause before she spoke again. "I made a mistake at work, a big one. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed, but..." Her voice broke. "I'm scared, Jake. I don't know what to do." "Come home," Jake said firmly. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out. Lucy and Ben need their mom." "I can't. Not yet. I need more time to..." "Sarah, you've been gone for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. These kids think you've abandoned them." The line went quiet for so long that Jake thought she'd hung up. Finally, she spoke, her voice stronger than before. "I'm coming home tomorrow. I can't run anymore." The next evening, Jake watched from his window as a taxi pulled up outside his building. Sarah stepped out, looking thinner and older than when she'd left, but she was there. When Lucy and Ben saw her walking up the stairs, they both ran to her with a ferocity that made Jake's chest tighten. Later that night, after the children had fallen asleep between them on the couch, Sarah finally told Jake the whole story. She'd made an error in the company's accounting system that had looked like theft, and in her panic to cover it up, she'd only made things worse. The 6 weeks away had given her time to contact a lawyer and gather the documentation needed to prove it had been a mistake, not intentional fraud. "I should have just faced it from the beginning," she said quietly. "Instead, I put you and the kids through hell." Jake looked at his sister, seeing the fear and shame still etched in her features. "We managed," he said simply. "And we'll get through whatever comes next too." It would take months of legal proceedings and financial restructuring, but Sarah kept her promise to stay. She'd learned that running away only made problems bigger, and that sometimes the people who love you are stronger than you think they are. Jake had learned something too. That family isn't just about blood, but about showing up when someone needs you most, even when you don't know how long that might be.
Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more interesting content coming soon.